Shalom and good day, this is Tehillim29 back again for another indie comic review, and in this indie comic review I'll be covering Dark Horse's Assassin's Apprentice issue 6 and also Nemesis Reloaded issue 5. I'll now get things fixed up and prepared for the comic I'll be starting off with first. So the first one I'll be starting on will be Assassin's Apprentice issue 6. And first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough it does, to which we get to see happening with the character of Fitz. And eventually we get to learn a little bit more about this place. And in fact, I think this might be the best issue of the series yet. But one thing, we'll find out that once we move to the area of the story. So, for the cover, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art, as to which we'll have a look inside around the beginning, middle, and end, and also some of the things that are happening story-wise with the character. So, as the story begins, we get to see the character of Fitz actually learning to basically read and write, do some literature, also learning a bit about the history of actually where we are. And if it's one thing about this series, it's never really been super open up as to where the key location that this takes place up. You do see locations where things are happening, but you don't know the actual location at all. And this is the only issue that seems to have done it so far. And it's a bit of a pity that it's actually sort of like finishing off here. And I think one thing else that really would have helped with this last issue is maybe having extra pages. So I'll now move it towards the middle of the story. And as we start to move towards the middle of the story, he ends up catching up with someone else who he met earlier in the series. And he also comes across basically some members that are connected to royalty, even though he himself is actually a royal bastard. And last but not least, we move towards the end of the story. And a bit of sad news, so we get a bit of a setup as to some things that might be beginning to take place when this series returns, and it seems to give us an indication that this series is going to be returning at around December of this year. So it's a bit of a leap between that issue and the next upcoming issues. And we also learned that the Queen has actually called upon Fitz's services, even though he's not really trained. He's done some training, but not really a lot of training to render him hired. But maybe for smaller menial tasks, I'd understand. So for the internal art, I gave a 7 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the story. And like I said earlier, I felt like this issue gave me more than any of the previous issues. And this is where it has actually gained a little bit more in point or in scoring. So first things first, the area of time, not really addressed, but I think should be addressed in a series like this. The location, we actually finally find out the location of where all of this is taking place, and we've got the the Otis Islanders. Weird as how it's said, and I probably butchered it. We also had the inland and the mountain. So we've got an idea of where this is actually taking place now. Pity it couldn't have brought that up around the beginning of the story, as it would have made a big, huge difference. The cast of characters consisting of Fitz, Ferdwin, Chade. We also had Burek and Regal, and of course the thing towards the end in regards to the Queen calling for him. For the overall story rating in this, I gave a 7.5 out of 10. Even though it's probably not the highest score for this. I think it really deserved it, because at least now we know where this is actually taking place, when I would have loved to have seen that at the beginning. So now it's time to move into Nemesis Reloaded. Oh, and the overall story rating is a 7.5 out of 10. So, as we jump into Nemesis Reloaded by Mark Millar and Jorge Jimenez. First things first, does this cover in any way, shape, or form connect to something that's happening inside with the story? Sure enough, it does, to which I give a 7.5 out of 10, because it brings together what was brought up in the previous issues to the forefront, and also to the things that you saw the character learn, or this character of Nemesis learn, to the forefront. And we get a bit of a ending of sorts, but it does continue in another issue, which is going to be happening in July. Whether I choose to pick that up or not, I'm not too sure. Maybe I might wait afterwards with the reviews in relation to it. So now it's time to move into the internal art as we look around the beginning, middle, and end. And I might try to skip, or I might try to avoid the end spoilers, but remain close to the end of the story when showing that. So as the story begins, we find out that Nemesis has moved into Eastern Europe, and this seems to be taking place before a certain event, but it's actually not pointed out time-wise. It would have been nice if it was, because at least we'd know why this event is important. As we draw a little bit closer towards the middle, we get to see some talk in relation to basically this character's parents. So we get the connection to his past, which was addressed in basically issue 2 to 3, and then whatever else was covered in issue 4. And I'll leave it for about here, which is towards the end of the story, to which one of the people connected to sort of like a Lotus Society, of course, Miss Lotus. Her face was used for some ID to get into a place and bring some exposure. Of course, we get a bit of more of a connection towards the previous issues and what was happening there. It's not at the complete end of the book, but I actually enjoyed the art in this all the way through. So for the internal art, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move in relation to the story and its racing. So first things first, did we get anything addressing the time? We had now, and we also had 18 months ago, which I believe, or 18 months also came up. In the area of location, we had Eastern Europe, to which dealt with the character of Miss Lotus. We also had Los Angeles, where a lot of this has been taking place. The cast of characters consisting of Nemesis, Miss Lotus, Joe Costello, who is also the mayor, and also Wesley Gibson. For the overall rating for this story, I gave a 7.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.